Today, I would like to dive into some chord theory with you. If you've never had any theory before in your life, I think that you'll be able to get a whole lot out of this lesson. If you have had theory before, if you think you have a basic understanding, I think that this lesson is going to be even easier for you. But I'm going to take it really slow, and we're going today to look at the key of G for a particular reason, just because if you're a guitar player or a banjo player, you play out the G position many times, a lot in bluegrass and in country and in lots of other genres. And so whether you're playing in an open G position or you're capoing up and you're playing in a G position, this lesson is going to really apply to those situations. Mandolin players as well, piano players as well. This is going to apply to all of you. And then as we get deeper and deeper into chord theory, we'll get into other keys and different chords. But as we look at the key of G, many of you play songs in the key of G, and if I were to just ask you, hey, what are the most common chords that you're going to play if you play a song in the key of G? You may or may not know, but a lot of you will say, well, I know that I play a C chord a lot, and I know that I play a D chord a lot, maybe an E minor and an A minor. And I'd be like, that's right. You see, in Western music and commercial music and in popular modern music, there's three chords that are very, very common within a key. There's the root chord, whichever key you're in. If we're in G, that would be a G chord, also known as the 1 chord. Then we also use the 4 and the 5 chord, which is in the key of G, is a C and a D. Now, whether or not you read music or not, I'm going to show you some stuff on standard notation music staff. And graphically, visually, you'll still be able to see the relationship between this, even if you don't read music. But let's look right here at our simple G major scale drawn out on the staff. We're going to start with our root note, which is a G. If you didn't know that was a G, that's okay. Just bear with me for a little while. We're going to start with our G. We're going to climb up all the way to the next G. If you played the G major scale on guitar, it would sound like this if I was to read this music. There's the G major scale. Many of you can play scales, and that's good. You need to know what you're doing when you are playing scales. But as you can see, we have our tones of the scale labeled out. When we reach the 7th tone and we start back over, we're 1 octave above where we started at a next higher octave, next higher root note, which would be the G again. We can also start the G major scale down low, this low G note down here, and play the scale up. We arrive at the root again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, root. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, root. Now, when I said that we play a 4 chord and a 5 chord very commonly in modern commercial music, that's true. And how do we get that 4 and 5 chord? And this is what will really help you out as you go to different keys and you're looking for what chords to play to make songs. We're going to look at our scale here, and we've numbered the tones. We know what our 1 chord or our root chord is. I've already explained that. Let's just count up. 1, 2, 3, 4. There's our 4th tone, which happens to be a C note. Remember you told me that we very commonly play a C and a D in the key of G? That's right, the 4 and the 5. Again, the 5th tone is a D note. Now, each one of those major chords, if you've been watching my videos for very long, you know about major chords. And it's very important to know some basic truths about major chords. The first being that major chords are made up of 3 different notes. Did you know that? They are. They're made up of 3 different notes. Now, the first note that they have that we generally think of is that root note. Just like we had a root tone in the scale, we're going to have a root note in our chord, and they share the same name. You see, if we're trying to make our G major chord, we're going to start out with our root tone, which is a G, which is the root tone in our G major scale as well. Now, to find the other 2 notes in our G major chord, we need the 3rd and we need the 5th tone of the scale. That is why scales are important, is to get this kind of information out. So we look back up here, just as we used the scale to figure out what our 4 and 5 chords would be, and we're going to find our 3rd and 5th tones. 1, 2, 3, which is a B, 4, 5, which is a D. So there are our 3 notes stacked on top of each other, the root, 3rd, and the 5th tones. Now when we go to find our other chords, we're going to do the exact same thing, except we would then look at that particular chord's scale to see what its third and fifth tones are. Let's look at the C major scale, or I'm sorry, the C major chord. We have our root note, which is a C. We're playing a C chord. And then if we were to draw out a C major scale, such as we've done here, and we went to the third tone, it would be an E note. So we have our third tone there. If we counted on up, our fifth tone would be a G note. In the same way, when we look at our 5 chord in the key of G, which is also known as D major chord, we find our root note, a D, our third tone's an F sharp, and our fifth tone is an A. Now let's take this kind of non-musical graphic here of just stacking the notes and look at that on the staff as well, because I want you to see a couple of important things. Here we have our G chord, just as I've drawn it here, labeled on the musical staff. We have a G note, a B note, and a D note. And there's something very important that I want you to realize. That's not, believe it or not, that's not the only place on the musical staff or on your instrument that you can find those particular notes. I'm sure you know that, but some of you, a bell's starting to go off in your head. Okay, when we look at a piano, it's the same 12 notes if you count the black and white notes over and over and over and over again. So technically I can find numerous G's, numerous B's, numerous D's, and there's no rule in the world telling us that we have to play them in a particular order. We do know, theoretically, that a major chord has the first, third, and fifth tones of that major scale. However, we can grab those first, third, and fifth tones from anywhere on the instrument. And I'll prove that to you here in a little while. And I did illustrate that here on the whiteboard by showing you that yes, we do have this root, third, and fifth tones stacked back to back. But if we were to keep going up, we could find another G note, which is another root, way up here. And if we come right underneath our G, there's another note that's contained in our G major chord. That's a D note. Even if you don't read music, I'm telling you, that's a D note, which is also what we have there. So now we have a fifth tone of the chord, right? We have our root, third, fifth, and then our roots up there at the top. You see, we're looking at our root, third, and fifths, but they can be in any order. We can reach and grab, and they don't have to stack it in any particular order. As we look at our C chord, we have our C, E, and G stacked nice and neatly. It would be a nice, neat little 3-finger chord if we were playing it on piano. But above it, we can find the next octave of it up. There's a C, E, and a G above it as well. Now, would it be a C major chord if I was to play this C note right here and then reach up and grab this C note right here and then maybe just play this G note? Would that be a C major chord? Yes, it would. Even though that contains only really 2 different notes in the chord. Like I said, we have a C, and a G. That would be considered a C major chord. No, it did not include, in my particular chord, it did not include the third tone, and I spread it out over a couple of octaves. But that's okay, it's still a C major chord. What's different about it, and this is an important word to remember, is the voicing. The voicing. Voicing refers to how we lay out our notes in our chord. And all instruments have to use different voicings because they're strung different. Okay? Guitars and banjos and mandolins and fiddles, they're all strung different, so it'd be impossible for us to always play the same exact voicings on the chords because there's different intervals between the strings. We're going to have to find different voicings. Important thing to remember. As we look at our D chord here, we have a root, third, and fifth. And I can go above that. I can find another root up there. That's the D note. And then an F sharp, which is a third tone there. Okay? Very important. Now, let's talk about one other key piece of information that you need to know as we're playing chords on our instruments. And that is our inversions. Many of you have heard that word. And I really want to break down what inversions are because that's when all of this stuff, all this knowledge that we have now is going to make sense practically on your instrument.
Every step since you've been gone, it's been